Hello and welcome to our latest video broadcast from More to Life. My name's Stuart Wilson. I'm the Corporate Marketing Director, and joining me again today is Ben Waugh, our Director of Operations and Change. Welcome, Ben. We speak once again. It's been, 2 months now since social distancing laws and regulations were introduced in the UK, and then just a week later we were into lockdown, and we know what happened from there in terms of the impact on this industry. More to Life were very quick off the mark with a remote valuation solution, which has worked fantastically well, and we'll come on to talk a little bit about that in a moment. But the really great news at the back end of last week was More to Life was able to announce the return of physical valuations following some easing of the lockdown restrictions announced by the government. So this is great news, Ben, and sort of hot off the press, we can start talking about actual days now and when this will all return. So tell us a bit more about that process then. What happens next in terms of physical valuations? And I guess there's a big backlog of cases to get through now in terms of cases that couldn't go through our remote valuation process.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all staying safe. Yes, it is indeed good news. And with a few caveats, physical valuations will be back. I think there is a fighting chance we will do our first physical valuations. That's tomorrow. So that's the 19th, Tuesday, the 19th of May is when we should start seeing the first ones go through. And the first appointments from the booking agents at eServe will take place this afternoon to facilitate that process. So from the point of, as you say, getting much greater clarity on how we work safely in customers' homes, which is obviously incredibly important for our customers that we serve, and also to keep the valuers safe. We've mobilized incredibly quickly, both on our side and eServe, to move those things forward. So, good news, definitely. Just a couple of things in terms of caveats, though. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do physical valuations in Scotland or in Wales because of the stance that those sort of national governments, if you like, have taken. But obviously, if we get any opportunity to do those things, obviously we'll be working closely with eServe to make those happen. So there are a couple of caveats, but yes, good news. Physical valuations are back, and that can only be a good thing, Stuart.
Absolutely, and I guess also there'll be customers who can't go through a physical valuation anyway because they're regarded as clinically vulnerable, for example. So there will still be a need to retain remote valuation. So we're going to operate a dual track process here, aren't we? So can you talk a little bit about how that will work from an advisor's perspective and a client's perspective?
Sure, yeah. So I think from our perspective, I think the one thing we've learned, when we first went into lockdown was that we were 100% dependent on physical valuations. And I think it's highly likely that potentially over the next 6, 12, even 18 months, until we have widespread vaccination, for example, and the complete lifting, for the long term of lockdown restrictions, our view here at More to Life has been, how do we provide a consistent customer and broker experience and an ability to complete loans end to end, regardless of whether we're going up or down on the government scale of lifting lockdown restrictions or indeed tightening them up again because we see a second spike or whatever it might be. So for that reason, our current stance is very clear in terms of, ideally, we will, as new instructions, for example, come in, is we will attempt to do a remote valuation, because in most cases, there's no downside and actually a significant upside, which is it's going to be a faster process and a safer process for valuers and customers to do that. But if, on the other hand, that's unfortunately a property isn't eligible for a remote valuation, then we will default to a physical valuation and use that as a method to get those cases moved through. So, our stance is very much remote valuation where we can, still default to physical valuation if you can't. And to that end, on remote valuations, we've learned a lot in the last 6, 7 weeks that we've been doing them. We've done 1,500 or more of them now, but we won't stop evolving that process so that more and more properties can go through that remote valuation process. And that's, very much with the broker and customer in mind, because if things do unfortunately get worse and we are tightening up the lockdown rules, we want the biggest, widest possible pipe for as many customers to go through, regardless of what's happening with COVID-19, so that customers can get the funds that they may, in some cases, very desperately need. and make sure that we can support them essentially regardless of what the environment looks like outside from a COVID-19 perspective, Stuart.
Great stuff. And so with this dual track process, there'll be lots of applications still going down the remote valuation route. We know that on some products, not all by any stretch of imagination, but some, there are retentions that apply to those products because of the remote valuation process. So are there situations where perhaps a physical val could be done to help unlock that retention if it's a particular case that an advisor needs or the client requires that additional borrowing?
Yeah, so sure. So if you've already got a product or a customer which is completed on a retention product, obviously we'll be looking to slot those follow-up valuations into the queue of backlog cases so that we can hopefully crack on and release those retentions as fast as we can. But I think we're some weeks away from getting to that part of the backlog. If, on the other hand, the customer is applying for a new case and they are happy to wait for the valuation to take place at some point in the future and live with the retention for a period of some weeks, great, we'll continue as normal. If, however, you've got, we have seen some customers like this, where a customer needs the full release in order to pay off an existing debt, for example, and therefore it's become a very challenging situation for the customer because they don't want to proceed with some of the release if that's not going to be enough to meet their needs. For those cases, what I would say is if you can liaise with our teams in broker support, so Paul Glynn and Mike Miller and those sorts of colleagues, then and flag those cases, we will do our best to bring the follow-up physical valuation to as early as we can in the process to give the customer and the broker the certainty they need that moving forward with this product is the best decision for the customer. So in those rare situations, then we'll do everything we can to try and give the customer that certainty of that physical valuation so they know whether they'll get the retained amount or not.
So that's great. It's great news that physical valuations are returned to the market, Ben. And I think more than anything, it's an indication of a return to a degree of normality to this market. I know we're not out of the woods yet, but it's a great milestone for this market that we're moving back towards a physical valuation situation. But let's not forget that with remote vals, we've actually had a fantastic experience with this in terms of speed, in terms of advisor feedback and customer feedback. So can you talk me through a bit about the current SLAs or service level agreements that more2life has been experiencing through to offer and completion through our remote valuation process?
Sure. Well, the remote valuation process, as we said earlier, it continues to perform extremely well. So we've had more than 1,500 back. Typically, they come back in less than one working day from instruction to the ESA valuers being able to complete that valuation. So that's fantastic customer and broker experience where we can do that. In terms of our wider SLAs, then generally, as soon as we're getting a valuation back, we are still going to offer within a day, 2 working days after that in terms of releasing offers. Sometimes obviously we still have a bit of back and forth with the valuer to make sure that we've got either they've got all the information to push that valuation through or there's a few questions we need to ask, but generally it's as good a process as we were pre-COVID-19 in the lockdown. Obviously what will happen as we start to push through the backlog of cases to physical valuation, what I expect to see is a spike in valuations that we've received back in more2life, that it will take the underwriters a little time to actually work through that backlog. But again, we'll continue to be transparent with brokers of what our service level position is. But putting those things aside, inevitably challenges we'll face in operations to try and move that through quickly. The other good news is that despite all the challenges in the wider end-to-end process with post being delayed and things like that, we have had some very, very fast completions. The fastest one actually I've just seen this morning is one for equity release supermarket. And we've actually completed from a new original application submission to completion in 11 working days. Now that's faster in most cases than we would ever do in a physical valuation environment. And I would say, having looked at that case in some detail, what it does show the benefit of is where the broker, ourselves, our solicitors, so Enact or Optima, eServe, and the customer solicitors were really on it with that particular case. And we were working really well as a team. And I think with all the challenges that we face in the end-to-end process, if we can really nail that and really work well as a team, then we can still get cases through in record time and provide a brilliant service to both brokers and customers. So, you know, it's not all doom and gloom by any stretch of the imagination. There's some real success stories coming through, and obviously we want as many of those as possible.
That's great news, and brilliant news for Equity Release Supermarket and their customer. So thank you, Ben. That's all the questions I had for you today. It's great. It is, as I say, great news that physical valuations are returning. We will, of course, be updating all of our all the advisors registered with us with an up-to-date on where we go from here, how the process will roll out in terms of physical valuations alongside the remote valuation process. So keep an eye on your inbox for more information, and of course we'll post more updates to the Covid-19 update section of our newsroom. But for now, thank you, Ben, for joining me again today, and thank you for watching, and we'll join you, or hope you join us rather, on the next video broadcast. So for now, stay safe, and we look forward to speaking to you again shortly. Thanks very much.
Take care, everyone.